embody and take on the role of activist in a way that requires and demands lots of sacrifice and time.
Sorry, Khari. We just lost the lights for a second.
I'm Khari Lucas, also known as Contour. I'm here to play a set at Mucho Flow Festival. It's kind of hard to encapsulate in like a single sentiment. A big theme throughout is kind of how connected the past and the present and the future are, as well as how connected, kind of disparate parts of our experience is, whether it's like material reality, emotional reality, like historical, political reality, how all of these things bleed into each other. Or at least like that's a lot of what I was thinking about, more so than I would try to say that it's perfectly like represented. For me, even just personally, I find a lot of solace in learning about artists of the past and events of the past, because it feels a lot less isolating when you find those examples of, oh, this person whose work I admire or who accomplished these things or who just managed to survive had the exact same experience that I'm having right now. It changes a lot. When I was working on that record, it was filmmakers like Charles Burnett and Kathleen Collins, poets like Amiri Baraka, and June Jordan, and Lucille Clifton. Recently, it's primarily been blues musicians. I have different like cultural, emotional needs, and the things that fill those needs kind of find me when they need to. I also feel like everything has political context and like documentary context, even if it's not being presented in a way that's like legible to academia, or like presented in a medium that you would register it that way. I listen to just as much like popular rap music and like R&B and whatever else as I do like consume like historical material, and there are really poignant statements being made in all of these things. Music for Black people specifically began as a documentary technology as well as like a communication technology. Seeing Black people document their own lives is inherently political and inherently very rich with statements about what's occurring, and I find myself drawing from really any source that falls into that category in that way. I honestly don't consider myself to be particularly politically engaged. There's a kind of sacrifice and dedication, at least to take on the role of activist, that I don't personally think that I live up to. I don't think that I have no political presence, but I kind of see my level of engagement as kind of the bare minimum, which is to try to learn about things and have any kind of an opinion. But I honestly don't think being engaged on the level that I am is more difficult than not being, because I find that it's in the long run way more difficult to be suffering and be completely confused about why it is. I find it to be easier to have context. If people ascribe to care about human rights, it is one of if I won't say but it is one of the largest complete disregards of human life that we've seen, or that I've seen in my lifetime. Beyond that, it is absolutely connected to the every other form of oppression or repression that subjugated people across the world are experiencing and are continuing to experience. Israel is following the US's blueprint, and not only that, but is also acting as its own blueprint that imperial powers will continue to use to more efficiently and more quickly enact their own genocides. Literally displacing and destroying entire groups of people has been common practice for as long as they've existed. And if we see that this has been happening for hundreds of years, then why wouldn't it continue to happen for hundreds of years? I kind of think we have to get over ourselves. Like, it's not our moment to feel powerless. There are people who have been under rocket fire every day for every day for weeks and regularly for almost a century, who have refused to give up hope and who have asked directly very little of the rest of the world, primarily at bare minimum being to speak on what they're experiencing. And it's just not really the moment to be so concerned with powerlessness or what our self-concept is in relation to that. It's the moment to take point on what we're asked to do and just do it, and find people to process the feelings about it with, which is necessary, but not allow that to be an inhibitor. For me, filmmakers have the best grasp of poetics out of any medium of art, with the exception of maybe literal poets and like songwriters. But I think poets, songwriters, and filmmakers really embody like the poetic form. It really cuts like right into you in an immediate way. And I always watched films, but I didn't get so like obsessed with them until a few years ago. And it's just seeing how complete statements and resonant statements can be made absent of verbalizing them, how an interaction between people is a statement, how in long form an entire set of experiences makes a statement, and kind of seeing different ways of engaging with time, especially in that way. I can think of a film and think of like 60 minutes worth of thing as like one line in a poem, but it also contains many other lines because it's made up of individual scenes, and then scenes are made up of individual pieces of dialogue. So there's all this layering of the emotion that's being felt and combination and juxtaposition. It's amazing how much poetic information you find in an hour and 30-minute block of thing. I think my mission is honestly to be able to go to sleep at night and live with myself. Work is one dimension in which I have the luxury of being able to kind of painstakingly craft a thing that represents or does or tries to do something, whether it's I'm trying to create my own sort of document that other people can find solace in. Like I have the ability to do that, as to where if I'm thinking about responsibility as a citizen or anything, it's kind of like showing up in the world on a day-to-day basis, not creating pieces of art, which we all have to do. We all engage with each other and show up all kinds of places all the time, is much more difficult. And I think my work presents an opportunity for me to reconcile that with myself and make sense of that for myself, if that makes any sense.